This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for September 12th. My name is Vern Carlson. I'm the chairman of the commission. Tonight we have a fairly short agenda, one public hearing and the rest site plans. I'm sure that you're all aware of what is on here and how this works. It's mostly continuation from last month. But for those who don't know, the applicant will present the application and the commission will ask for questions. And in the public hearing, I will open it to when the commission is through, I'll open it to the audience and have your input on the public hearing. And then if the commission has any other questions or staff, then we'll close it. So, and in the site plans, of course, there's no public input whatsoever in the site plans. With that, let me introduce our staff, which up my streamline is Andy Belbutler, our town engineer. Next to him is Alan Ferguson, our land use administrator. To my right, to my left, I'll get it right here. Misty Tanya is our court reporter, and Pam Miller is our staff secretary.
I'm Rod Williams, alternate.
Brian Cummings, regular member.
Mark Parisi, alternate.
John Troiano, alternate.
John happens to be a new member coming on. Tonight is his first meeting, and so he'll not be sitting on this first application, which happens to be the Quinnipiac tennis court. Rod will be sitting in place of Teresa, I guess, or Jim, one or the other. Who will be sitting on? One or the other. Whoever you got there, Pam. Okay? Mark will be sitting for either Jim or Teresa, whichever way they want to go. Okay. With that, now, let me ask you this. Is there any changes to the agenda?
There are item number 3 and item number 4 are postponed. They have yet to complete the inland wetlands process, so they may be heard next month. If you have a question on it, give a call into the office before I come down.
So if anybody's here for item 3 or 4 at Sackle Point Road, they'll not be heard tonight whatsoever. So in any event, if you want any information on that, get a hold of Alan and land use during the week. Okay, with that being said, I think Brian, you want to take the secretary? Okay. Alan? Pam?
Yeah, okay.
Mike, go ahead.
So you want me to read it first?
Read it, call it first.
Okay, this is public hearing P2211S. Continuation of the special permit application as authorized by section 3.1.1.2 of Quinnipiac University, applicant and owner relative to 370 Bassett Road, map 91, lot 22, plan entitled Quinnipiac University and Connecticut North Haven Campus, 370 Bassett Road, tennis court relocation, prepared by BVH Integrated Services, dated May 9th, 2022, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, LO zoning district.
Okay, Bernie?
Yes. Good evening.
This is the continuation from last month, folks.
Okay, and you're hearing this along with the site plan P2211?
Yes, we are.
Do you wish him to read in the site plan?
Well, go ahead. You want to read the site plan?
Okay, read the site plan here.
Hold
Okay.
on 1 second.
This is the site plan for P2211, a continuation of the site plan application of Quinnipiac University, applicant and owner relative to 370 Bassett Road, map 91, lot 22, plan entitled Quinnipiac University, Hamden, Connecticut, North Haven Campus, 370 Bassett Road, tennis court relocation, prepared by BVH Integrated Services, dated May 9th, 2022, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, LO zoning district.
Okay, so you've heard the call of both the special permit and the site plan. Bernie?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Bernard Pellegrino. I'm an attorney with the Pellegrino Law Firm in New Haven, and I represent the applicant, Quinnipiac University. As those of you who were here last month know, we were here and presented our application to construct 6 tennis courts on the campus, on the site of a parking lot, present parking lot, which is no longer being used. And there were certain questions and comments that came out of that meeting that we were asked to address. So Howard Fromer, our project engineer, is here, and you'll hear from him in a minute. And Sal Filardi, who is our vice president of facilities and master planning, is also here with me. We'll also hear from him later in the presentation. Maybe I'll have Howard just do a little overview, brief, because I think some of you may not have been here. So he'll just briefly describe and kind of orientate you to the project, and then he'll go through the questions and comments and updates that were made to the plans in response to what was heard last month. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Howard.
Good evening. My name is Howard Fromer. I'm with Nathan Jacobson and Associates. We're the civil engineer for Quinnipiac on this project. So I'll try to keep it really brief because, again, a number of you saw this last month. So the proposed project is on the northwest corner of the North Haven campus. Right out here, it's going to occupy an existing parking lot that had 143 stalls. We're going to disturb about 1.5 acres. We're going to remove about 1.2 acres of impervious pavement and build about just under an acre. So we're going to have a 20% reduction of impervious surface. We did receive our wetlands approval. Obviously, we're here. There's wetlands to the north, about 60 feet away from our disturbance. The next closest is to the south, 600 feet, and then 1,000 feet to the east. The existing parking lot has lights. There are 4 double-headed site lights. Did not measure them, but they look to me, based on one of our 6-foot surveyors standing next to it, that they're about, say, roughly 18 to 20 feet tall. Q, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. And there are 2 single-headed site lights that look to me to be about 25 to 30 feet tall, and 1 short lighted bollard. The proposed tennis court corral will have 6 courts. There will be 8 50-foot tall site lights, 2 on each side. And without getting into the storm drainage aspects, if you're interested in that, or the earthwork, we're probably going to move about 1,500 cubic yards of earth. We're going to bring it onto the site to regrade the surface so that it drains similarly to the way that the existing tennis courts drain, where we utilize some existing inlets. All that water discharges right to the pond.
Which entrance will those trucks be coming in and out of?
They'll be coming out of this entrance on the north end. What I thought I would do is go down through the 6 comments from the town planner, and there was 4 comments from the town engineer. If you'd like me to do that, I'd be happy to quickly read them in. They're fairly brief, and then just explain to you what our response is, or will be. The town planner had a July 5th comment, quote, submit revised plans, which include A, notes on the title sheet indicating the number and nature of the applications. That's been done. B, proposed light fixture catalog cut. That was submitted at the last meeting on August 1st. Comment number 2, soil and erosion controls must be inspected by the zoning enforcement officer before work may commence. That's already included on sheet C0.1, which is the one I have open here. Note number 20 in the bottom middle of the list. Number 3, the property owner and or his or her agents must maintain, repair, replace when necessary the siltation control until all development activity is completed and all disturbed areas are permanently stabilized. That's already included on sheet C5.1, general guideline note number 3. Note number 4, any proposed signage or fencing will require the filing of applications with the zoning enforcement officer. We will do that. Submit an as-built plan prior to bond release, we will do that. Post bond as required, we will do that. The town engineer had 4 comments dated July 5th. Number 1, verify the depth of the existing sanitary sewer as it runs along the south edge of the proposed tennis courts. Use extreme care in driving perimeter fence posts, particularly along the southwest corner of the tennis courts where a potential conflict with the sanitary sewer may exist. 20220729- comment remains. Our response is, according to the Blue Cross Blue Shield record drawing, that sewer should have about 6 foot of cover. And fence posts are down about 3.5 feet, and the storm drainage structures along that area are roughly equivalent depth, so we should have plenty of cover over that sanitary line. Comment 2, additional plantings should be considered along the north and westerly sides of the new complex to improve screening to the street and neighboring town park. 20220729 plantings have been added. Our response is, yes, additional plantings have been added, and we've added more still, particularly to screen from the street, where we had 39 trees and no shrubs. Now we're showing 74 trees and 50 shrubs, and I can show you that planting plan if you'd like to see that. And number 3, correct for lighting trespass issues. Our response is that's been done. The maximum foot candles at the property line is now less than 1 foot candle. And comment number 4, the last one, show location for relocated blue foam. A single blue foam will be available in the vicinity of the new tennis court complex. 20220729 comment remains. Yes, we have proposed a location, and we now show that on SU 2.0. And I just would like to point out one other thing, besides all of the plantings that we're now showing along the west side of the screen from the neighborhood, we also have a solid fence 20 feet off the fence that goes around the courts.
That, the new fence you're gonna put in there, 115 feet long,
Excuse me,
115 feet the fence?
how long is the fence?
Yes.
It's in 2 segments, and I think the sum total is about 150. There's a space for a driveway.
Yeah, the phone company has an easement for underground infrastructure right in this area. And they had a driveway coming into the existing parking lot, which we have to maintain. So we brought the fence right to that driveway, but we break it right in the middle.
I had a couple questions about that fence while we're on that.
Sure, do you want me to answer the question about the length first?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So close to 120 feet of total fence length, but again, there's a gap in the middle here, probably of about 15 to 20 feet.
Sorry, I got this distracted.
The total cumulative fence length is about 120 feet with a gap of about 15 to 20 feet right here for the driveway.
Okay. Good enough. That's all I have for the moment. Go ahead.
Okay, so the larger span of the fence, it looks like it's broken up by 2 little squares. Are those, what, just help me understand what those are. Are they?
Oh, these squares are just symbols.
So
Those little squares are symbols. The fence is continuous. That's just
Okay.
a symbol for the fence line.
All right. All right, so, and it's 6 feet tall, just, I wanna get an understanding of what that might do. I understand the light from these fixtures, the poles are in front of it, and the focus is on the court. Does that cut off lightly, like if you're standing on the road, out here looking, I'm just wondering why it's 6 feet tall and what that might do to the person on the road? Is that basically shield it from the light, or?
What we were trying to do is make sure we had an absolute cutoff for the lighted court itself. Light is thrown onto the court itself. Yeah. I should also mention too, the court is being pitched from northwest to southeast. So in a minor sense, it's tilted away from the homes on the north. So that also adds to reduce the amount of surface that you would see from west to east. Again, it's sloped. High on the northwest, south on the, lowest on the southeast.
Is that noticeable when you're on the court, or is it?
No, it's not actually. We've done courts like that. We have to comply with certain tennis court design regulations, so we couldn't pitch the parking lot, the courts the way the parking lot is pitched. The parking lot's pitched kind of like the roof of a house where the peak runs from west to east. The south half drains to the south, and the north half drains to the north. We couldn't do that. We have to maintain. We had other choices for pitching it, but pitching from the northwest to the southeast works with the existing drainage system. That also reduces the amount of projected area you might see from the west.
Thank you.
You just jump in, Andy. Yes. Look at that, look at the drainage on that.
I did.
I was satisfied with what they put together for,
Yeah.
drainage, yeah. Yeah, because they're decreasing the impervious area on the site. There's more impervious in the parking lot than there is in the tennis courts when it's all done.
Okay.
Just to follow up on the lighting, I don't know, Mr. Williams, if you had in your packet the lighting. Because these lights really direct, these fixtures direct that light right onto the court, and it's fairly self-contained, as you probably saw. The few neighbors here had some concerns about, the view in there, and so it was discussed and thought that maybe that stockade fence would help screen their view of the lighted court on the ground from their homes. There was also some testimony last month that the tornado a year or two ago that kind of came through town had wiped out a lot of the screening on the road there. And so this additional planting has been added to help there, and then we put the fence and beefed up some of the plantings on the court side as well, in response to those comments. Thank you.
I have a question, Bernie, just what the fence is and what the fence is made of.
It could either be wood or PVC. We didn't specify it, so that Quinnipiac could decide which they prefer.
Solid.
Solid is what we
Solid
definitely want to do. Solid, stockade, solid.
So if the commission has any ideas or thoughts on that,
Well, certainly the, either way, I guess they look okay, what they put in there, but they're thinking of either wood or PVC, and PVC obviously would be white, I presume.
You can get different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and, what about the wood fence? What would it be? Would it be a typical stockade fence, or would they put something a little different?
Well, my thought was typical stockade fence, but I suppose we should ask QU if they decided what they'd like to do there. I kept it somewhat vague, 6 foot high, solid stockade fence, to me means solid, whether it's PVC or wood or what color, I didn't specify, because I really didn't know what the wishes of the commission and QU would be.
Well, the stockade fence, the typical stockade fence that you buy at Home Depot for say, is white cedar. White cedar doesn't really,
I have a white cedar fence, it doesn't last like they say.
doesn't last very long. So, yeah, we have to do something. If it's gonna be wood, if it's gonna be wood, it's gonna be have to some other than.
They have the vinyl, PVC vinyl fences,
Right.
and they've actually gotten the wood tones now, they're not too horrible. I'll just leave it at that.
So, good way to put it there.
well, are there wood fences that aren't stockade? I think your note said privacy fence.
Yeah,
You know,
the
not
privacy,
stockade,
what we're
so-
looking for, or the fence goes, privacy and density, to keep the sound down.
Solid fence,
Yeah.
no room between the slats, solid
Okay.
fencing, that's
Good
the,
enough.
that's
Very
the
good.
fence.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Bernie, we going next?
Yes, no, I'm all set.
You guys have any more questions?
Well, not regarding to the site plan, just the project in general. You've gone through plenty, and I'm actually pleased with what you presented as far as screenings and all, but the overall concept of having it there is where I'm stuck. We were under the impression, graduate school, graduate students, now all of a sudden you're opening it up to all the undergraduate students traveling down Mount Carmel Avenue, or whichever way they get to there, and then returning again to their dorms or wherever they might be. We're talking about an increase in traffic well over what we've got there. Now, you say there's not a lot of cars there, but the times are coming, and now you're opening the campus up to a lot more students than were expected to be there. And that's where my issue is, more than anything. I just don't see, the project itself is beautiful. I don't have a problem with that. I think you've addressed the lighting concerns. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have to live next to it, so I guess it's kind of here or there, but I'm more concerned with the traffic generated. You say there's gonna be a few big games or matches, as they're called, with the buses, and we talked about where the buses might not enter. But I'm concerned with the times in between them. The students coming up till 10 o'clock at night, driving in and out with their cars, you know, that added traffic plus the added students, the undergraduate students that we weren't anticipating having over in that campus at all. That was the original proposal from Quinnipiac when this was approved many years ago. And now all of a sudden we're opening it up to, you know, a regular attendance of undergraduate students, which theoretically could be all year long depending on weather conditions. So that's my biggest concern right now.
Okay, good enough there, Bernie, you'll be taking that over. I guess.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
discuss
yeah,
that
we'll-
in more detail.
Good, Mark.
Good evening. I did want to add Sal Filardi. I'm the Vice President for Facilities and Capital Planning at Quinnipiac. I did want to add two things. One is we've also done we made some operational changes. So at the Inland Wetlands Committee meeting and Commission meeting and at the first Commission meeting of P&Z, some of our neighbors did come forward and say, hey, we have this problem, I think Chairman said, well, did you tell them? Because they can't fix a problem if they don't know about it. So they did tell us, and we did address some of them. So there was a concern about public safety headlights shining in their windows at night when they changed the north gate. We ended that practice, so public safety's cars are no longer shining their lights into the neighbors' windows in the evening. Or actually, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, so it was pretty late at night. There's also some concern about trash. Facilities reports to me, so I was able to direct facilities to when they do police trash on our side of the street, but also across the street and pick up anything that's on that side of the street. And there was a concern about when we mow, because the tornado came through and cleared out a lot of the underbrush, or we cleared it out when the trees came down and everything. It's, especially in the summertime, it's a little dusty there. So some of that will be resolved by the additional plantings we're proposing, but also I've asked our facilities team to be aware of that and to, you know, potentially not mow on those really dry, dusty days, or make sure it's done at a time where it's not disturbing to others. And then the last piece was concerned about the volleyball courts that have been there since we acquired the building. We are going to move the courts to the back of the property, so the noise and the disruption of volleyball games from students does not affect the neighbors negatively. So they're not specifically, these things are not specifically part of the project, but because they came up through the process and they're really operational issues, we've adjusted and made those changes. So I wanted the commission to be aware of that. And I would, if I could, just make one comment about your concerns about, you know, the undergraduate population. So while the graduate schools are there, and we do consider our graduate campus, there are undergraduates who already go to the campus and attend classes there. The ones that are in those progressions that eventually they'll be the grad students that are going there. So in their junior, senior year, there may be some classes they take there. So there is already a contingent of undergraduates that come there on a daily basis. I also think that it's important to recognize we're putting in 6 tennis courts. So even if they're used, you know, completely double matches, it's only a couple dozen people at a time. It's not hundreds of people driving over to play tennis. And tennis, it's just a sport that doesn't have a big population. And if they're single matches, you're talking about a dozen people if all the courts are occupied at the same time. So it's really not a large impact. And then strategically, back in 2019, I believe, we put together a strategic plan, and one of our tenets is that, you know, educating the students in health and wellness, you know, not just studies, but, you know, living a healthy lifestyle. So exercise is part of that, and that's one of the reasons why we're pushing for the recreational component of the courts. And I think that, you know, we already see that on the campus with the volleyball, but it will be kind of an extension of that. And it's especially important in North Haven because it is our a school of medicine, a school of nursing, a school of health science. Most of our, you know, health-based education is done on that campus. So while I think, you know, there will be an increase in traffic, buses on, you know, match days. Again, tennis teams are not very big, and their followings are not very big either. So there will be an increase, but I don't think it's an increase that people are really going to have a concern with or notice on those days. But I did want to address that because it is part of a bigger picture for us about health and wellness of our students in our community.
Good enough.
And I think, I know your issue is more of on a regular basis, but just for the record, again, on match day, if you will, we will direct all traffic through the main access way and not have this access point available for the match traffic to the extent there is a lot of match traffic. We'd use that main entrance and not this entrance, so we'd have, our security people there to monitor that.
Okay, Bernie, anybody else to?
And the only thing maybe I would just finally add before we see if there's any other public comment is,
Well, before we get to public comment, I did want to talk about the traffic. There was a list of things that I got here to talk about, but I was gonna wait till we get to the public comment. But, I was thinking about the traffic. We were talking about traffic coming in and going out and lights being on houses. If you could direct the traffic, all people that are involved with the tennis courts to use the main entrance rather than the north end. The north entrance is gonna be, is really gonna impose on the people that are living directly across the street. Now, there isn't a lot of houses there, but the ones that are there, I'd like to give as much protection to it as I can. And if you could give some consideration, to using the main entrance to enter, get around to your parking space. I don't know how that works for your plans, but, I think it would help the whole fund. But we'll hear when we have an opportunity to speak. Go ahead, Bernie.
Just, again, timing and usage. It's really intended that these courts would be for faculty, staff, and students. Campus is essentially closed during the summer months, so there's really not many folks on campus. So I don't see a lot of summer traffic until they return mid-August. I think it's a fall sport, right, the varsity programs. So, and I'm sure most of it, for practice days, they'd be coming on a van, most of them. So transportation would be provided from the main campus where they live to the practice facility. And it is a weather-dependent use, obviously, so I wouldn't expect much after campus closes in December until whenever the weather permits you to get back on a tennis court. Maybe March is what I see. So.
Bernie, if in fact this goes forward, if in fact it does, how long a time before now, per se, and start of construction, and how long does construction take before it would be open?
Yeah.
So we don't get ahead of ourselves, so
Well,
we want
I
to get
didn't want
approval
to, but I don't want
approval
to.
first, but I think our thinking is that we would not start construction until the summertime, so that the disrupt, if we have students coming and going and parking concerns and all that stuff, so when the traffic is light on campus is when we do a lot of our major construction on all our campuses, so it'll probably be a summer construction window that we would consider.
Do it in 3 months?
Yeah, it should be a bit.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure who, maybe Howard on this one, but Courtney's comment number 3 in athletic student, Andy's comment number 3. It says light trespass issues appear to have been addressed. It says appear, or does it say have? What does that mean?
Based on my review of the analysis that they've provided, it looks like the light trespass has been taken care of.
He's an engineer.
There are no absolutes.
Yes, there are no absolutes, but, you know, once
They reduced the numbers to something that looks really good.
something.
Yeah, in their, and my whole point is in their initial submission, they showed light trespass come across onto the town park property next door, and that has been corrected since then. So if you look at the lighting analysis they provided, there is no light trespass that comes to the property.
Okay, that's what,
Yeah.
that's good.
So just to be clear, my question originally about the privacy fence and the lighting was, I think Attorney Pellegrino confirmed this, but the way I understood the handout that I got before is the lights all focus really on the court. So if you're looking up in the air, you don't necessarily see it because they're focused. And so what this fence does is to anyone who's standing and has the fence between them and wherever they're standing, it reduces that glare along the horizon, right, where the light is concentrated. Is that an accurate sort of understanding?
Yes, I think you're correct.
Okay.
If you were standing to the, I guess, what's that, west of that fence, maybe the neighbor's driveway or walking down the road and you looked, you would not see the lit court fence, and the landscaping would block that.
Okay. Except, of course, for the aperture left for that easement, right, the utility easement.
Yeah.
And then if you look around the corner, because there are only a couple houses that look like they would be shielded, and there are others at the sort of the top of the drawing there that look like there wouldn't be, they could still, you know, the privacy fence wouldn't necessarily block it, but there are white pine that look like they're sprinkled in there, and you have that, and you have the woods in the beginning. Is it your sort of, tell me about that, how, if that's something that you do?
I think the
with
distance
screening.
from those houses to the, what is that, north is, I wanted to say, several hundred feet. And between them is the park, and the pines, it's the pine park. So existing vegetation, et cetera. The light also, you know, we're talking about on the ground, so I think it's the distance, existing vegetation, et cetera, will provide buffering without the necessity of bringing that fence on the backside.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Russ?
Not right now, yes.
Anything else from the commission?
This
Or
time.
the public? Still good? Staff? Good enough? Okay. Bernie, are you good at the moment?
Yep.
All right, is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application?
I'd just like to say that the comments that were made at the last meeting are on the public record, so you're welcome to say what you like, anyone is, but those comments are not negated by the fact that we have a second meeting.
You say anything you want. Okay, let's one more time. Anybody in favor? What a surprise. Anyone in opposition? Come forward. Mary White. Yeah.
Mary White, Summer Lane. Can you hear me? I stand before you as a town resident of 32 years and as a person who cares about others. All of you are members of this Planning and Zoning Commission because you too care about others. Just because Quinnipiac wants to expand on their original approval of a quiet graduate academics only campus nestled in North Haven by adding an outdoor sports facility with its noise and soaring 50-foot light poles, which are 15 feet higher than any house in the neighborhood and 15 feet taller than any United illuminating light pole in the neighborhood, thus making it out of character with the neighborhood, doesn't mean they should. This proposed outdoor sports facility is contrary to Quinnipiac's original approval of a quiet graduate academic only campus nestled in North Haven, and it will forever change how the property is used from just graduate academics to graduate academics and sports. If this gets approved, the door is open for more sports facilities on the property. Let's go to the past to see the relevance today. On July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was published. The second section is a Declaration of Natural Rights and includes, man is endowed by his Creator with certain inherent and inalienable rights, including the preservation of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And government is meant to serve and protect those rights. In this matter, the Planning and Zoning Commission is
The North Haven
represented.
Library will be closing in 20 minutes. Public computers, copiers, and Wi-Fi will be shutting down in 5 minutes. Thank you.
In this matter, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a representative of the government, where your primary charge is to first consider the impact to, and then protect the public's health, safety, and general welfare before making decisions. This proposed expansion to add an outdoor sports facility benefits Quinnipiac while negatively impacting the residents. It will forever change their neighborhood. This expansion will harm the welfare of the neighbors, the residents. It will deny their right to the pursuit of happiness in their homes. Example, peacefully sleeping at night at 9 o'clock, enjoying family dinners, peacefully working from home, or quietly reading. And outside their home, enjoying family barbecues, gardening, and relaxing on lawn chairs. The harm will be due to the 50-foot light poles, which will be visible, and the noise from the Division I tennis team and club tennis athletes training, practicing, and playing in matches day and night, and the gatherings and parties that will take place after hours. And all this will take place 120 feet from Bassett Road. By comparison, the gym at the rec center is 90 feet long. Just add 30 feet and you have 120 feet. A regulation NBA basketball court is 94 feet in length. Just add 26 feet and you have 120 feet. 120 feet is not that far. Clearly the neighbors will hear everything coming from the outdoor sports facility day and night. The rights of these residents and neighbors matter. You are their last hope to protect their way of life, to protect their right to the pursuit of happiness, and to protect their health, safety, and welfare. I ask members of the Planning and Zoning Commission to imagine you live across the street. Imagine you live in the neighborhood. Recognize the negative impact and harm to your welfare, to your rights, to your way of life this outdoor sports facility will have. And recognize this proposal is out of character with the neighborhood, with its 50-foot light poles and noise. A no vote is the only answer. I ask you again, members of the commission, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the neighbors, to protect their right to the pursuit of happiness, and to protect the character of the neighborhood by voting no to the proposed outdoor sports facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else like to speak? Ann?
In Clark, 27 Bowling Green Drive, which is just on the other side of the park from the Quinnipiac campus. I've given each of you a letter tonight, which goes a little bit more into detail. I'm gonna spare you reading the letter, but I just wanna emphasize a couple of things. I know commissions turnover, and many of you, most of you, are new to the commission from the time this facility was purchased by Quinnipiac in 2007. Vern has been here the whole time. Bernie has been here the whole time. He probably feels like a member of the commission, he spent so much time here. From the very beginning, this was advertised as a graduate campus. It started with the Department for Physical Training it went to the medical school, it went to the law school. All of that is graduate work, that's all been fine with the neighborhood, it hasn't been a problem. There's been mention of a volleyball court. I believe the volleyball court was put there by Anthem. I don't know, and I've followed, because I live in the neighborhood, I have followed this campus through Blue Cross and now through Quinnipiac. And I don't remember any time that there was a zoning approval for a volleyball court. So I don't think that should have any bearing on whether or not tennis courts go in there. But this is a big change for the property, and it's changing it from an academic campus to a campus with an athletic facility. And I appreciate Mary's concern because she's right. But this is my neighborhood. We fought very hard to have Pitch Pine Park become a park. It's a fragile neighborhood. It is the last undeveloped piece of sand plains in the town of North Haven, and North Haven is primarily sand plains. So the vegetation there does not grow anyplace else in North Haven in an undisturbed spot. There is wildlife in there, which I would not have believed when I first moved to Bowling Green, but we have a little bit of everything in there in addition to the plant life in the pitch pines. This is gonna be disturbing to the area. So I just want you to seriously consider, because your job is to protect our neighborhoods, that this is a big change in the neighborhood. I'm not talking about the lighting. I don't live on Bradley Street. I will have some residual lighting on Bowling Green once the leaves are off the tree, but that's not a big issue for me. The big issue is this is a change of use for this property. And it's a big change, and it does open the door for something else that I don't think should be there. And I don't think it was ever the intention, and Vern, you know that, and Bernie, you know that. And I ask you to consider.
Okay, Ann, thank you very much.
And if we could just mark Ann's letter exhibit 1.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excuse me, is anyone else here who would like to speak? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Gary D. Simone, 5200 Ridge Road, North Haven. I had a couple of observations I want to offer to the commission. First of all, at some point in time, not too long ago, these tennis courts were located on the Mount Carmel campus. I know for a fact that the current zoning regulations in Hampton limit the height of light poles to 35 feet, not 50 feet. So my first concern is setting a precedent by allowing this project to go forward with 50 foot. I'm not quite sure whether.
Just a little bit louder.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what, I don't know if this is even on.
It doesn't amplify, it just records it.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So I don't know what the current Haven regulations are regarding height of poles, but I think it's also 35 feet. So I think you're setting a dangerous precedent by allowing 50-foot poles here, number one. Number two, I'll admit I'm not a lighting engineer, but simple high school physics tells you that the intensity of light varies as the inverse of the square of the distance from the source. So what that means is if you got a certain size light bulb at 35 feet, that's providing a certain illumination 35 feet below the ground level. And you now move that light source to 50 feet. In order to get that same illumination at ground level, you've got to double the size of the light source. So simply said, I mean, I know these aren't real numbers, but if you had a 100 watt light bulb at 35 feet, it would have to be 200 watts at 50 feet in order to get the same illumination down at ground level. The other thing that happens is the size of the area that's covered by that light quadruples. So if the 35-foot light covered an area of, let's say, 4 square feet, just to give an example, the 50-foot would cover 16 square feet. Okay, that's just simple high school physics. And I know these lamps are proposed to be shielded, which means it's going to try and direct the light down. I don't doubt that the trespass, as they call it, around the perimeter is going to be pretty minimal. But the light isn't invisible from 50 feet in the air to the top of this 6-foot fence. you're still gonna see all of the light that's being shown down on the field. So you basically have a rectangle or cube 44 feet high above the top of this fence of light glare that everybody's gonna see. So I think you need to take that into account. And you see this when you drive around a town, for instance, and you pass a school sporting facility. You can see, even if you don't see the field, you can still see the glare from the lights that are being illuminated in the field. Right? So those are my concerns, and I think you should vote no against this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Anyone else? Anyone else like to speak? Have an opinion? Have a comment? Have a question? Now is your time. Okay. Bernie, I'm not going to speak here, so you can respond to this.
I think it's important just to reiterate that presently this is a parking lot which for some time had contained 140 cars and is presently illuminated. I think we've changed the tenets from an environmental, from a use standpoint is probably an improvement to the park and the use of this area. I think that recreation is important for all of our students. I think our grad students will utilize it. I think our undergraduates would utilize it as well, those who play tennis. I would think that's it's a complementary use to what's happening on that campus, as our other complementary uses that we have. I think the scope of the use has been overstated by some tonight. It's not the US Open like you may have seen on TV this week. This is, for the most part, going to be a small number of students or faculty playing tennis. Match day, the 16, or I forgot what we said, maybe for both men's and women's, 30 matches on the campus don't bring throngs of spectators. It's typically, parents and friends of the players. So I think this use is an improvement from a site development standpoint. It provides an amenity for all of our students and faculty, and would be a benefit. I think light poles are not regulated, so we're not violating any of your regulations with 50 feet permitted under the regs. Just to answer that point, I did my lighting. We hired Musco Lighting to do the design for this facility. They're the preeminent sports lighting contractor in the country, if not the world. They have gone through a specific design to eliminate glare off the court. We spoke last time about the progress in outdoor lighting over the past 40 years. So while it may be true that if you drive by a older sports facility prior to the changes in the technology, the advancements, you may see lights or glare. The design of the changes in technology and the design of this project would not be like any of those older facilities that you may have seen. If you go to the ones that have utilized the latest,
The North Haven Library will be closing in 5 minutes. Please bring all items to checkout at this time. Thank you.
have utilized the latest technology that Musco and some others have been able to implement, that the light is directed down, protects the neighboring environs, and really limits glare off the court. Yeah, and I know I asked Rod, but hopefully you've all seen the presentation by Musco, so you probably all have that.
Can I add one last question? But you gave us some wonderful photographs of courts that have this. Are there any locally that we can go and look at? Because this is.
There are local projects that they have done. I think they did the East End, but I'm not sure if they're all tennis. They gave me a list, I think. East Haven football stadium they did. I think they've done the lacrosse field at Albertus Magnus, which I think is a good example. I don't know about tennis courts, but I do have the list of projects that they've done in the area that I could provide to the commission. I just don't have it on. I know those two were on the list, but there were others. I don't recall it. I think the photo was Babson College. It's a little far to drive, but they did do their tennis court.
If there was something we could look at though, for something locally. Because it is something that's out there that can be looked at. It is an issue.
I don't think it could be represented well in a photograph.
That's a good point.
That's something we'd like to do.
Well, if there was something reasonably similar lighting system, whether it's on a football
Well,
or, to view, like I said, the photographs are photographs, and, we don't know the vantage point, we don't know the reference, it's very difficult to judge the overall effect.
There is, I could give you some examples, because I did, I think I have that somewhere in my file.
What do you think of that?
I guess, so there were a couple of comments about the fact that this is somewhat of a departure from the way this campus was originally sort of presented to the public. I wasn't here then, it was 2007, but I think it's a concern that I would like to hear some assurance that this isn't sort of step one to some sort of greater change that changes things, so that, there's this original vision and then all of a sudden the foot's in the door and it's years later, but now this is part one of something else that follows after it, more sporting venues or whatever else is here. Is there anything else you could tell us?
Well, yeah, the history of the approval for this site, which was, I think, generally well received back in 2006 or 2007, just prior to purchasing the campus from Anthem. There were a lot of concerns, what's going to happen to this campus if Anthem sells. I think generally speaking, the idea of Quinnipiac purchasing the campus and utilizing it was, as I said, well received. There were concerns about undergraduates living on campus. That was probably concern number one, and as you all probably know, one of the conditions of that approval was no undergraduate housing on the campus. It was certainly represented to the commission at the time that the major focus for the campus would be graduate programs. There was a growing graduate program in health science. and education. And those were the first two that actually moved in after the zoning approvals were given. Subsequently, the law school was relocated, and then, I forgot which order. The school was given a medical school, and the site was chosen for the location of the medical school. And that's generally what's happened. You know, the site is used primarily for graduate students, and it does not contain any housing for undergraduates. And there was the initial change of use and amendment to the zoning regulation to permit the university. And then we've been back a few different times since then, adding a law school, changes to the building for the medical school. And there was discussion about, you know, that some of the graduate programs were being used by mostly upper class undergrads who would be kind of moving into those graduate areas of study. So I think that was fairly clearly put on the record during some of the subsequent changes to the overall building layout and design. I don't think this signifies any change to what has happened historically. And it's not the first step in some project plan to materially alter the operation or the use of the site by the university. In fact, we are currently before the Planning and Zoning Commission in regard to a major initiative for 2 new academic buildings and a new residential dormitory on the campus, all of which is set forth in the master plan that Mr. Filardi referred to. And I don't believe there's anything in that master plan that would signify any significant changes on the North Haven campus. Do you?
Well, I mean, there are building potential future building site. Any master plan is kind of a flexible roadmap for the future. Just because something's on a master plan doesn't mean it gets built, and something that's not on a master plan today could be built in the future. But there's no sports facilities, there's no stadiums or anything like that. And I would probably point out that approving this this doesn't get a foot in the door, right? Any project we want to bring forward in the future has to come before this commission, and if the commission feels strongly that, well, we said okay to that one, but we didn't want any more, now you bring us another one, you could say no to that. So I don't think, I want to go back to the strategic vision that it's a health and wellness campus, and there's a health and wellness initiative with our students. I think most of you probably know we started the Bobcat Strides program on campus, where we even opened it up to the community, where they come walk inside the buildings on inclement weather, and when it's nice out, we even have a path outside on campus that they can walk around. Tennis is a kind of a low participation recreation, whereas other fields would need bigger groups and bigger teams kind of thing. So I think it's in keeping with that kind of personal recreation type of approach. And again, there are no plans for any larger or other types of sport facilities on the campus.
Mr. Filardi,
Yeah.
if we can get a list, as already suggested, of areas around here that have muscle lighting on fields, and we could look at it, would you be willing to continue for a month on this? So we could all look at even those in the assembly?
Yeah, I think we could put that together. I would want to counsel that the list is all muscle lighting projects, so some it's newer technology, but it's not.
Locally, though.
Yes, but the lights on a soccer field or taller and different than the lights on the tennis field. And some of those, I understand that a picture is only a picture, but you can see some of those pictures on tennis facilities where it's a smaller surface, it's much easier to contain the light. The poles are 50 feet tall. A lot of times, even with Musco lighting, poles on football fields are 100 feet tall. So it's not exactly the same, but I think if the commission wants to see a similar technology that it's dark over there and it's light over here on the field, then I think, that, we'll be willing to continue for a month and get as much information to you as we can.
Okay.
Sal, what was I'm sorry, Sal, what was the time duration on the master plan? Did you say 10 years?
So, the master plan doesn't really have a time duration on it, but we did put together a 10-year capital plan to begin to implement it. So we're probably in year 2 of that implementation. So we're recently completing a new recreation and wellness facility on the Mount Carmel campus, and we're looking to get approval to build the 3 buildings that Bernie mentioned. So those were our strategic priorities, the first steps of the master plan. To be honest with you, the probably next step may be in North Haven, but it would probably be an internal build out. If you don't know, when we put the law school in what Anthem called Building 3, we shelled out 4th floor. So there's 40,000 square feet of space up there that could be renovated and used, and some of the growth in our programs will probably end up there. So it's not new building per se, but it would be a renovation of existing space on the North Haven campus.
I have another sort of nasty question, but I'm going to throw it out regardless. Let's just say the commission's purview was to approve this application, and let's just say hypothetically Quinnipiac decided to not build this there. What would the university's willingness be to provide the landscaping regardless?
We've actually talked about that already. So, I think, and that's why I pointed out the 4 things that the neighbors raised, right? So one of the things was, we took all the shrubs are gone and we could see right into campus. So I think, I don't have a timeline on that, but if we decide not to build it, I think, one of the things we are trying to be good neighbors. So one of the things I think we do want to do is address that concern. And it's especially in this area, right? Tennis courts or no tennis courts, it's either side of the north entry where most of the clearing of most of the trees fell down and most of that cleared up. So we kind of created this kind of grassy entry point where you can see right into campus that wasn't there before. So I think it's safe to assume that in the near future, whether we build them or not, we'll probably be trying to address that concern.
Very good. Also, when we speak to the commission, we will accept your offer to continue this for another month.
Okay, thank you.
We assume that inherent in that offer is granting the commission the extension they have.
It is.
Thank you.
Okay, Bernie, I give you a few minutes to get your stuff together on before we continue.
My daughter's been watching The Bachelor, and you sounded like the guy who said, I'll give you a few minutes to gather your belongings and get the heck out. I'm watching too much reality TV, I guess, because
On a site visit, I thought they were going to provide a list of projects and the commission was going to take it on itself. And you could have that same list.
Yes, of course.
So you're not going as a commission, you're going individually?
No, they will not. No, that
We're gonna go
constitutes a meeting.
individually.
No, we're not doing
By all means,
that.
continue.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because if you were going to go as a group, then I would ask that the public be invited to go. Thank you. Oh, hey, Alan, how are you gonna give that list to?
When Bernie gives it to me, we're gonna circulate that to the commission.
Right.
And they can go and do whatever investigative work, I guess they.
No, I meant to the public. Some of these people are gonna wanna go look at it.
Once it's submitted in writing, you'll have free access to that. I can make a note to give you a call when we receive it if you like, Gary.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay. Well, set, Bernie?
I'm ready.
Very good. Move forward. Brian, I'm gonna go over to, B 2218, please.
Okay, this is the site plan, right?
I'm sorry?
This is the site.
Yes, it is. Yep, second.
This is the site plan for P 2218, site plan application of Shoreline Ventures Third LLC, applicant and owner relative to 22 Broadway, map 67, lot 1, plan entitled Site Plan of 22 Broadway, North Haven, Connecticut, prepared by Feathers Engineering LLC, dated June 27, 2022, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, CA 20 zoning district.
Brian, one clarification, you said the word shoreline, it's Shore Ventures.
Okay, thank you.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Bernard Pellegrino. I'm an attorney with Pellegrino Law Firm. I represent the applicant. In regard to this application, Catherine Griswold, who is one of the principals of Shore Ventures 3 LLC, is here with me this evening, and our project engineer, surveyor Greg Fettis, is also here. And you'll hear from, at least hear from him, if not Catherine, during our presentation. Property in question is 22 Broadway. You're all familiar with the site. It's right there, directly across the street between Peck Street, which is here, and the old firehouse, which is the home for Watson and Associates, which is here. Both the owner of that parcel and Mr. Crisolo, who has his chiropractic office on the other side of Peck Street, have provided letters of support for this project to the ZBA, which is where we were last month. I'll briefly touch on that in the presentation. This is existing conditions, the existing survey. It's a house used for a number of years as a professional office, which will continue to be the use. So the use isn't changing, with a parking lot to the rear. The plan, which is begun internally, is to renovate the facility. There's been some environmental, asbestos cleanup and other stuff, and they're reworking the shell to return the building to its historic grandeur. And I don't know if these are in your file, so I thought I'd pass these out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 photos.
That is, this is what it's gonna look like when it's done?
No, these are some historical photos of what it's looked like over the past 150 years.
I'll mark the 6 photos collectively, Exhibit A.
Yeah. Included in the 6 photos is a photo existing prior to the exterior renovation. So the plan is to return it to essentially what it looked like shortly after it was built, which is to put the front porch back on, put the side porch back on, and do some modest expansion in the back of the building, essentially to improve access, internal access to the upper levels. That includes some foundation repair in the rear. And landscaping and the like changes. The I think you have these plans, which is the drawings, the architectural drawings. So the architectural drawings show the proposed elevations. So this is the front of the building. This is the porch being redone. Our client's been working closely with the Historical Society. They were able to help them find these photographs. Side, Peck Street side. This is the side porch, which you see on the photos. So that's going to be installed. The floor of that side porch is actually going to be a handicap ramp. So it's a porch covering the handicap ramp to allow handicap access, and you can see the small change on the rear of the site to expand to allow for more code accessible, code compliant access to the upper levels. To that bump out in the rear. From a site plan perspective, you know, there's really not a whole lot going on the site, other than what I've already mentioned, the two porches and the small little bump out on the back to kind of deal with the internal access ways. We proposed some landscaping, and so that's my presentation. I probably overstepped my bounds from an engineering standpoint, so I'll ask Greg to come up and put his certification on what I tried to explain for you.
Good evening, my name is Greg Fettis of Fettis Engineering, office at 70 Essex Street, Mystic, Connecticut, professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut. Again, yes, I agree with Attorney Pellegrino. Relatively, the biggest issues I think were the zoning board of appeals, a couple of variances that were granted, because the front yards on both Broadway and Peck were not met, so therefore we did receive two variances for both porches. So a small addition in the back was removed and replaced again for access, stairwells and handicap access. The parking lot, basically the same. The only thing we did was stripe it. There's currently no striping there. There's a couple of underground infiltration systems we put in. 50% of the roof, of the entire roof, will go to the one between the building and the west side property line. So it's basically a 10 by 10 by 2.6 foot stone infiltration trench. It'll be below grade. There'll be grass over the top of that. And a similar one located between Peck Street and the back corner, the northeast corner of the building. It'll capture an inch plus. I think the calculations were signed off by the town engineer. We did have a couple of concerns. We will add roof leader inverts and sizes. that's not an issue, either 4 or 6 inch, simply size those accordingly. And the inverts, again, the leader drains will go down underground and go out to the infiltration galleries. So which would also, the depth will be indicated also, that's comment number 2. They are below grade, which I mentioned, covered with topsoil and seed, as I mentioned. And then the third item is there's an existing dry well located in the middle of the parking lot. We're gonna reuse that, clean it out. There's a 4-inch drain that comes out of that and heads over to perpendicular to Peck Street and ties into the existing storm drain on Peck Street. It's an overflow, so if the dry well can't keep up with a rainstorm, basically there's a 4-inch drain heading out to Peck Street into the storm system. So it's basically the dry well was almost completely full of sediment, as well. The 4-inch drain was clogged, so that's been cleaned. The 4-inch drain's been cleaned out, so it's functioning now. But part of the project would be to clean out the dry well also, and get that back in working order.
Excuse me, how old do you suppose that dry well is?
I don't know. But if we feel like it's not functioning,
Well,
we'll replace it.
I didn't mean it wasn't
Yeah.
going to function, I
Yeah.
just was wondering, it's been a long time.
I'm guessing they probably had a drainage, if the grading hasn't changed, there would be a puddle there, so I'm guessing it's been there for a long time.
And you got any idea or not? It had to be there a long time.
Yeah, I have no idea how long it's been there, but I mean, he's essentially addressed the comment that I had.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanna make sure, you got a single inlet in the middle of that parking lot, you wanna make sure that it functions. As long as you're going to the trouble of doing all the renovations out there, let's make sure that parking lot doesn't become a pond and people have trouble parking back there. That's my only comment.
When you get that silt in there from old dry wells like that.
Right.
You know, plug it up bad.
Absolutely. So doing a good job cleaning it out, and the fact that there's an overflow, and if that can be added to the plan, that's ideal. You know, I think that addresses my concerns as far as the drainage is concerned.
Yes, we'll add all that information to the advice. So sheet 2 of our plan set is basically a landscaping plan. So we're basically adding landscape kind of around the building, as well as in front of each of the existing sides of parking. There's some existing trees and so forth that'll remain in the front. There's a couple of trees here, we just kind of realized that they're not in very good shape and concerned about them coming down in a storm or hitting the house ultimately. So we're taking those down if they're not already down. And then just, we will be adding to the northwest corner of the building, a kind of a little corral for garbage, the regular kind of garbage, not a dumpster pad or dumpster enclosure, but kind of a 90-gallon recycling as well as trash, which we will put add some additional landscaping around that also.
Is there a landscaping drawing there?
Sheet 2 of 2, which my plan set,
Yeah, okay.
which shows basically. There's Mountain Laurel, yes, around pretty much all Mountain Laurel. But typically we have a note that we substitute if for whatever reason, maybe substitute equivalent plants if for whatever reason Mountain Laurel is not available, or the homeowner or the landscaper thinks I'm crazy for putting Mountain Laurel there.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Nice
If there's any
job.
questions, but I'm here.
Any
I
questions?
do have a question. We have a number of pictures from a historical society. Is that where you got this?
I believe so, yes.
So how far back are you taking as far as in history? Going back that way, the porch and all that. We have a picture with the picket fence in front, and we have pre-utility pole pictures, after utility pole pictures.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not the architect, but,
Okay.
you know, I think the intent is not necessarily to mimic what was out there, it's the fact that there was a
Pretty
front
close,
porch
yeah.
and there was a side porch.
Yeah.
And we're kind of putting it back with more modern, modern but historic looking,
Exactly.
and the ramp is, obviously the ramp is a big part of it for accessibility and so forth.
I think the idea is to restore the spirit of what was there in the 1870s.
It looks like they followed all the upper line to roof line. They followed the roof lines all the way down. Pretty nice, that's all I can say.
I'm not sure who to address this question to, but the ultimate use of the building is gonna be similar to offices. Do we know how many space and who's done the count for parking? I know it's been existing for quite a while, but is that already meeting our requirements?
My comment was to provide parking calculations. It is an office use, the same as the use that was there prior. And my calculation indicated that they have more than met what would be required by the table in the regs.
Or curiosity, do you know if they're planning on multiple offices or they have a single line tenant?
Not yet determined.
Okay, just more curiosity than anything.
Yep.
I was very upset several weeks ago when the fence showed up and hadn't seen anything come through here yet, and I was getting very nervous, but I'm very pleased that it's going through in the stages it is. It's great.
Thank you.
There was no, just to be clear, there was no stop work order or anything along that line. Because they did not require change of use, they were able to do certain things on the interior in terms of demolition and proceeding, but had to go through process for the additions.
The windows on the third floor, it looks like you're actually changing them back to the original shape, is that right? Right now they're squares and it looks like they're, if I'm reading the plans correctly, they're these pointed side-by-side windows. Is that true, is that accurate?
Yes, that's,
And I described them, but Gothic.
yes, they're
Yeah,
Gothic windows.
Right here, right? These windows?
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yes.
Yes, okay.
Right.
And then the,
Catherine?
that's nice. And the lower ones look like they're all getting mulligans, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All right, just pointing out, that's,
Yeah,
it's a nice look.
very nice, I agree. I mean, it's really like Alan said, working hard to restore this spirit of what was there when it was.
Pretty nice building to me, anyway. Any questions from the commission?
And if I didn't mention it, because I know Ann is still here, the Historical Society testified in favor at ZBA last month and provided a letter, I think. So we've got all the neighbors kind of on board and really excited about the project.
It might be in the drawings, I can't recall going over them when I first got them, it was actually over a week ago I got those. The addition, I know it's necessary and I saw it, and I don't have a problem with it, more curious, how much square footage just in the footprint, not those holes? How are we adding on to that building? They worked it in beautiful, I just can't tell it's.
It's 14 by 26,
Okay.
so whatever that math is.
That's fine.
Can't do it in my head, but get my calculator out. And we're taking down approximately 25 by 10.
Correct, rebuild it to accommodate this, I understand.
Right.
Okay.
I had calculated 12.77 parking spaces is he required. They showed 15 on the plan. And that was based on a general area calculation that I had done.
Any more questions? Staff?
No, well, I do have a question regarding the possibility of a dumpster.
No proposed dumpster. We would just use regular,
No need?
no, just regular office pickup. We'll have, you know, as Greg mentioned, just a couple of wheel-out containers.
Okay, Bernie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Get on the other now. Alan, you want to tell us about 6 Delaney, so everybody knows about it?
No, I don't want to, but I only say that because Mr. Eric Lindstrom is here representing that requester, if you will. And I hope he can do that.
I didn't see
And I don't want to deny him the opportunity to properly bracket it. He came all this way to, and he brought his own easel and all that, so. Can't take away the thunder.
Yes.
Plus he closed the door when we needed it much.
Alrighty, good evening. For the record, my name is Eric Lindquist. I'm Senior Project Manager at Ty & Bond, and I'm here in front of you today representing Yale Haven Health for 6 Divine Street. As you'll recall, I was here, I think it's about 3 years now or so, for the approval of the site improvements that are out there now and being wrapped up on site. As the building has become occupied and being used, Yale Health has realized that they really need more accessible parking spaces on the site. Currently, there's only a few spaces located around here. Some up here and mostly in front of the building. So their approach is going to be to maintain the ones in front of the building and to add more spaces in this area here, because as you'll know, this is the drop off right now, and this is where the primary entrance is to the building. It was relocated here as part of the prior site plan application. So we're looking to add additional accessible spaces here because, like I said, they feel they need it because of patient requests and things like that.
Eric, when you say accessible, that's what we call handicap parking.
Yes. Yes. So currently, the space count for accessible is at 22, and we're going to bump it up to 40 by creating this space here. One of the ways I've proposed on these plans to account for the accessible path to the building is currently there's a sidewalk that runs along here with a ramp and a crosswalk that comes to the corner here. So we would be depressing this curb and making it flush and putting the sidewalk flush. So we reconstruct this entire sidewalk, make it flush so that people can kind of come across and get safe pedestrian access to the building.
Okay, Eric, so how many spaces you gonna have totally now versus what you had?
Before was 462, now we're at 450 because these are less efficient than regular spaces, so they slightly, they take up more space. So there'd be a loss of 4 spaces per each of these rows.
Okay, so you're gonna move some from where they are over to the front of the building?
Say that again, sorry?
Is it you're gonna move handicap to the front of the building?
Well, there's accessible spaces here right now.
Yeah.
And we're
Oh,
keeping
they're there now, okay.
Yeah, we're keeping them. Right, what Yale Health has done right now, because they have this need as a patch for the current time, they've actually assigned parking spaces around the site as accessible. They're not to the correct striping and things, so that's just been a patch to fix the need right now. So they put some temporary signs out there and said accessible spaces. They're not really being used and they're not really convenient. This will be used, this will be convenient for them, it'll give a safe path to the building. So that's what we wanted to do and accommodate it, so.
Very good.
I went down there and I took a look at it. It seemed like an unusual endeavor at first, but as I sat there, I observed that there was a shortage of handicap spaces, and there was competition for those spaces. It was kind of unbelievable, but, you know, so often at a grocery store or what have you, there are too many handicap spaces, and some spaces go unused. But they, for some reason, given the use, and the building code does accommodate that. For medical uses, there's a higher percentage that are required. But they are distributed about the site somewhat. But there is a need that I saw when I was there.
And there'll still be 2 more spaces back up. As part of the prior site plan application, we did add additional spaces up here, and there's that whole ramping system in the back to provide accessible entrance to the rear of the building. So those still will remain. It's just the grading back here doesn't work well with additional accessible spaces to meet the ADA requirements. But over here, this is a nice flat area, and it works really well. Not to mention, most of the accessible need is for patient, so it makes much more sense to be down here, so that's what we proposed.
Very good, Eric. Rod, any questions?
No, my questions are answered. It sounds like it's just driven by the need of the
Correct.
people who use the facility. That's great.
Brian?
I was down there 2 weeks ago, you do have a need.
Mark?
The overall number of spaces, I know you're using by the number you said it wasn't that great. Where does your numbers fall with what was originally required? Are we way over the limit, or are we?
No, there was a parking study done before to show that this was underparked technically, but we did a parking demand study with a prior application to show what's really needed for this use. And if you go out there, you'll see there's a lot of it, not used parking, especially on the north side of the building. So there was buffer, and I believe it was in excess of 12 spaces, so we're still falling within those parameters.
But this is one of those properties, I think, where the commission does a good job at looking at what the actual need is and not being welded to what is in the table. And there were spaces forgiven that were in accordance with the study that was provided. Eric's been involved with this since,
For a while.
well, yeah, a long time.
Long enough.
Anything from staff? All set? Good enough, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. An extension here,
We do, for 2 Grasso Avenue, the applicant, the owner on this, does want to pursue the project. He is a contractor, and he has been busy with many other things. But he has been granted 1 6-month extension, and he just needs the other 6-month extension before he can really begin the work per se. So he has already posted his bond, so he's serious about it.
it's good to go. Okay. Let me just discuss this with Andy before we go into deliberation on the bond release there on 342 on Washington. Explain it to the commission so that they understand that the old bond and the new bond that we've got to deal with.
Yeah, so basically, this project had, when they did the renovations, which was, 3-4 years ago,
Sure.
there was a bond that was already in place for that property that hadn't been released. That was a $35,000 bond. And the decision at the time was to pull that bond over into this project since it was already there. There's no point in doing it now. That bond is significantly higher than what we would normally have required in this day and age because of the new state statutes. We're usually only allowed to bond for public improvements or erosion control type things. You know, so typically a bond for a project like this would be $2,500, $3,500, nominal amount. We've had some difficulties with this particular applicant in terms of getting them to finish up the last pieces of the project. They've been asking desperately for the bond release to be given. We met out there with them and their attorneys, the town attorney was out there as well to kind of take a look at what's, what remains to be done. There was an issue with some trees that they had planted, which were buffers. They were very small. And there was also an issue, with trees that hadn't been planted that were required. And then the last piece of it had to do with several parking spaces which are kind of out in front of the building. That those parking spaces need to go away because they didn't comply. They couldn't put an island on the end of those parking spaces, which is required. But those parking spaces are actually on top of their tanks. So there's no way that they could put an island on that end piece. So we essentially told them that they couldn't have those spaces. So we've been back and forth several times with them, trying to, to get them to comply. What they agreed to do is they put no parking signs. They eradicated the parking lines that were on that concrete. They basically rubbed them off. And then they put no parking signs up on the bollards that were behind those parking spaces. So that's what they've done at this point. They put the no parking signs in for those parking spaces. They did do some additional plantings around behind their dumpster. They did not replace the few plants which we felt were kind of small. So we're trying to work with them to get this thing completed. They haven't done everything they were supposed to do, but they have made some efforts to try to address those issues. We agreed we'd bring it to the commission and have a discussion about it, as to whether the commission is satisfied with what's there at this point, to allow a release of that bond. And I think that's kind of the point we're at right now.
Well, look, have you talked to the senior part of that, Michael, the younger?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we've talked to both of them.
Yeah,
They were both present at the meeting with the attorneys a couple weeks ago.
And are you satisfied with what they have?
Well, I mean, they haven't addressed everything that we've asked for, but they have made efforts to try to make improvements to what they had out there.
Well, let me ask you, are they going to?
There's no plans to do anything more at this point. They basically have done what they said they would do when we were in the field.
Okay, so they said they were gonna do, and they said they did what they said they were gonna do.
Correct.
They're not gonna do any more.
Correct. It was,
Whether
they
we
had
keep
no
the
intention
bond
to
or
do
give
it.
it back.
Right, so.
What do you think about that one?
I'm a little confused. So they've done everything they need to do, or they
No,
haven't?
they've done what they said they would do when we were in the field. They have not done everything that was on the approved site plan.
Well, I don't think we can get them to do what we asked them to do. They refused to remove, what did they paint that? Where they painted over the tanks?
Yeah, they removed the parking space line delineations that were on the tanks.
So we have some technical, deficiencies based on site condition. Is there nothing else that is sort of not in compliance from the site plan at this point? Is there any more it could do? What I'm concerned about in these is, this is the only leverage we have, and so if there's
Right.
anything else that needs to be done, this is it.
Right.
So is there anything else that needs to be done, or?
Well, there is some things that could be done, yeah. I mean, they could replace the smaller trees that were there, that were intended to be there for buffer.
We're gonna hold the bond until they're big enough.
The whole thing of it is, we want to hold it as bond,
So-
and we want to get this thing out of the way. We
Yeah,
can't-
so I mean, the bottom line, we've been working with them for months and months and months to try to get as much done out there as possible. And I'm just here to present to you where we stand right now. They are emphatic about the fact that they've gotta have their bond back. So,
I mean,
And ju-
are we good enough to give them the bond back?
I don't know that that's my call to make, but from my perspective, I mean, I don't know that we're gonna get an awful lot more without fighting with them for the next 10 years. And is it worth that for
Well, how
six
about
additions
this?
that are out there, which really aren't that far off from where we're supposed to be? You know what I mean?
Let's add a couple of things here. I mean, first of all, as Andy said, let's be clear, they're over bonded because there was an existing bond from 2002. So they're over bonded by a magnitude of 10 or 9 or something along that line, okay. And they have been throughout. So, yes, they did eradicate the lines, the stripes that were there, but eradicate is a funny word, okay? There's still a trace of those lines. They didn't remove the pavement and put down new pavement.
Because they
did
couldn't.
something-
They could, it's concrete, which is the top of the tanks, so, yeah, they can't do that either, so.
So a combination has been made that was not posited by the commission to add the signage that would discourage people from parking there. Are people gonna park where it says no parking?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't wanna take that bet. The other thing is, your regs don't stipulate exactly what the size of a shrub should be that surrounds a dumpster. So they planted shrubs that were probably a little smaller than what Andy and I had expected, okay? So, you know, as Mark has observed, God willing, they'll be of the size of our expectation at some point, so let's hope.
The new ones they put in are bigger. Well,
Right. But, I mean, is it worth the hassle to, continue to hold this money?
in my opinion, probably not.
But as-
But, and then the other thing you gotta consider here too, we're holding a considerably larger bond than
Right.
state statute would allow normally in these kind of cases. You know, they could very well file suit against the town and demand that that bond be released to a point which would be in compliance with the state statute, which would be $2,500. So
Right,
just
so
to
we
put
don't,
it into
I don't wanna
perspective.
circumvent the commission and have them go to anywhere else, so. If we can deal with this, let's deal with this now.
Have there been any complaints by the adjoining property owners that they haven't met any requirements?
And it's not as if the site doesn't look attractive. I mean,
I drove through it.
Yeah, they did a nice job in the renovations that they did out there, so it's a decent looking site at this point. It's not like not like these items are taking away from that.
And I think it's their advantage to keep it looking well because that's part of their business.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll go right into this.
Business does look good.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
And it looks good compared to before they did the renovations out there. It's an improved site, no question.
We'll go back into, go ahead. I don't
So are the shrubs that are there, the shrubs that you would prefer be there, or are they less now? It sounds like they had some, you wanted something that was a little more robust or bigger, they've replaced them, and now if those grow.
No, they didn't replace the ones that were there. There's 4 or 5 that are there that are small. But what they did do is they supplemented what was there with additional plantings along the back, which they owed us anyway. And the additional plantings are bigger plants than what they put in originally.
Trouble with those, I think those are dwarf Alberta spruces, and
They
they're
are.
at most 7 feet.
Yeah,
Right,
right,
that's good.
Right, but I mean, yeah, eventually when they grow out, even if they grow at 7 feet, they're gonna be higher than the dumpster, so, you know.
I guess my problem with this is it doesn't seem like it's that hard to put a few more of these things in.
You're right.
In the front, and if they want the money back and it's a lot of money, seemed to me like an easy solution that would, I at least would be satisfied if that was the case. That's kind of where I am on this.
Good enough, we'll take this right into deliberation. Okay. Can I get a motion to move, go into deliberation?
Please don't. We have a couple of changes of use that are here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we wanted to address this, okay? It
Okay,
was for-
85 State Street?
No, 350 State Street.
Is there anyone here relative to 85 State Street?
No one?
Okay, I placed a call as a reminder, and they'll get the voicemail at some point, I guess. So, there's a consignment shop that would like to open up, at 85 State, that's, with King Acres Plaza.
Yeah.
There was a service there, which was a repair, entity for selling machines, vacuum cleaners, etc. Just maybe understandably out of the picture at this point. But regardless, so they come in with basically a consignment shop that's a retail use. So there's other retail that's in the shopping center. It's technically a change of use, that's why it's before.
The sell and back was actually retail and repair. They did sell retail out of it.
It is retail.
Fair enough.
Good enough. How about, well, 275 Valley Service? Talk about that one.
Good evening, Sean Cassidy, owner of GoGac, recently purchased 275 Valley Service Road, which you may know is the only game in town. I'm actually converting that property, or the plan, assuming you give permission, is to allow me to use it for public safety testing. So I am involved with the recruitment and selection process, police officers and firefighters to a lesser extent. There's 2 parts that I'm truly involved in. One is the physical, what's called physical fitness or physical ability test. I'd like to use the building over there to administer those tests. That's for the police side. For the fire side, I was recently granted a license to perform what's called a CPAT test. It's a candidate physical ability test for firefighters. And then there's an opportunity to do written exams as well. So that's the change that I'm looking to make. Currently, the property is being used, there's three parts to the building itself. There is a arcade, there's an indoor miniature golf, and then there's a concession / snack bar area. My plan, obviously the arcade will be moved out of there. The space that's really conditioned in there currently is the space that's used for the indoor miniature golf. And so I'll be looking to hold testing in there. At some point in a later date, I'm assuming I'll be coming in front of this commission again to ask for some improvements, not structural, but cosmetic improvements to the facility. At this point, I'm not requesting those.
So you just want to keep the same footprint, the same space, if that makes sense, and just repurpose it. I don't know what public safety testing would be. I feel fairly confident it's permissible in the IL zone. It could be office space, it could be a service per se. We have other testing agencies over at the North Haven Shopping Center, 117 Washington Avenue, and that's an IL zone. It doesn't seem to me to be anything that's too much of a stretch, but it's not a clear category per se.
Would there be a firing range there?
No.
What would the plan be? That's a large chunk of physical property.
Yeah, so it is a large. So I should say this is kind of a partial change use because I think currently the driving range is probably the best use of that piece of property. So my plan currently is to leave that as it is, maintain that driving range. Where the go-karts are currently, that at some point will be demolished, leveled, and I'd like to turn that into a 200-meter running track.
Okay.
And the outdoor miniature golf is gonna go too, right?
Yeah, I had a consultant come in, to be honest with you. He tried to persuade me not to remove that, but my inclination right now is probably also level that for some additional flat space. But I don't want to commit to that right now. Kind of still assessing what the options are there.
Your plan is to continue to run a driving range for the public?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Any more questions? Staff?
Oh, Sean, S-E-A-N.
Thank you.
Okay, how do we make the change on
Make a motion to change it from a sports facility to a public safety testing facility.
that?
And
I
then
had
approve
that
it.
part, but that's what we're gonna put in. Oh, very good. We're all set. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Rich.
Okay. Now we got 350 State Street. Aces?
Me.
350.
Thank you very much.
So currently it's the ACES. I'm Jennifer Lacey. I'm a spokesperson for community social integration. Jennifer Lacey. Spell it. L-A-C-E-Y. Thank you. So it's currently the ACES building. We are community social integration. We provide supports and services to adults with intellectual disabilities. We have a small day program that would be located in this building. 25% would be dedicated to the day program, the other 75% would be for office space. We are primarily residential supports for adults with intellectual disabilities, and they live within the Hampden, North Haven area. We have 12 community residences and about 5 apartment situations.
So your hours of operation would be?
Excuse me?
Your hours of operation would be?
Like 9 to 5.
So it'd be drop-offs?
Yep, it would be primarily office and the people who come for the day program, 9 to 3. And it's really small right now. There's only 5 people who participate right now in our day program.
Where are you located right now?
2666 State Street, up where Special Olympics is.
Anything else, Mark? No? Okay.
And just to be clear, the building's over 18,000 square feet, and she just wants a change of use for that portion of it. The rest of it, we are going to sign off on as no change of use, okay? So it's 14,000 square feet that will remain office. So that particular space, we will sign off on as no change of use. So the adult rehab center, which is a use that's specifically written into your regulations, is the 4722 that you see before you.
And I might add that we are a for-profit agency, so as opposed to ACES, which is a nonprofit, we will be paying taxes in the town of North Haven.
So it puts the entire property back on the tax rolls, and it is non-residential.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Okay,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
You know, the only game in town is proposing to change all 14,000 square feet, but he said he was gonna keep the driveway range, just saying. I don't know what to do, I just had it.
Okay, can I get a motion to go into deliberation?
I'll make a motion to go into deliberation.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to approve the continuation of the special permit on Quinnipiac, on P22-11S? Okay,
Second.
have a motion and a second, all in favor?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Rob Williams.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the site plan? I don't need this site, that's just, we're moving this to next month, the whole,
So you're gonna get a motion to approve the continuation of the application for next month.
correct. Just had that wrong for a second. I need to do the second one too, then, P2211.
Yes.
Yeah, can I get a motion to approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve the continuation of the site plan application on P22-11 to next month.
Good enough, have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good enough. Okay, over 22 Broadway, the motion to approve as it was presented.
I will make a motion to approve 22 Broadway as it was presented.
Second,
I'll second that.
okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 6 Divine Street, handicap. Moving of the striping of the handicap. Motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Second,
I'll second that.
okay. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next one, the extension on 2 Grasso Avenue. It's a 6-month extension. They had 6 months prior. We were given another 6 months. They're entitled to it.
I'll make a motion to grant the 6-month extension on 2 Grasso.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, the bond release on Washington Avenue, we're gonna leave that set as we came up with it.
My thought is I'd like some more shrubs or bushes or trees or something in
Okay.
front to satisfy.
We're not gonna get much, but we'll try.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We'll just-
I think we should go for a little more
Okay.
shrubberies.
I'm gonna go for the jugular.
So the idea would be, the shrubs that were in question were surrounding the dumpster. So there are 9 shrubs there. 5 of them had died, and they replaced the 5 with slightly larger shrubs.
Now,
So
there were some shrubs missing from the original site plan. Were those added as well in the back, I believe it was?
Yeah, along the dumpster, right, there was,
Oh, that
there
was
was,
along
yeah, I
the
think
dumpster.
there was
Those were
2 that were dead, and they replaced the 2 dead ones with, I think, 4 or 5 along the back of the dumpster, so.
So if you'd like additional shrubs, or would you like those
Replace
shrubs
the small
removed with
shrubs?
larger shrubs?
Larger shrubs, can't make them put that fish in. The larger shrubs, larger to comply with the reg. Whatever it is.
Would they initially-
It's 1 inch.
Yeah, and it's really complying with the intent. The intent was that those shrubs were supposed to provide screening, so.
Yeah, but what it, they got, like, they put in 1 inch, we need 2. I think we're gonna fan ice for this one.
Okay, I will contact them and have that discussion.
Okay, good enough.
If they follow through, we'll see them next month and they're gonna have their dollars and cents.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to make that motion? Rod,
I will make that motion.
okay, have a motion? Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
What is the, is this a motion to deny that?
Deny the release
Deny
of the
release
bond.
of the bond.
Pending additional shrubs,
Okay.
rather larger.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. Okay, now on to change the use. 85 State Street.
I will make a motion to approve the change of use for 85 State Street.
Okay, that's the consignment shop.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. 275 Valley Service Road. Rod?
I will move to approve the change of use.
I have a motion,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
350 State Street. Aces, just heard it, he's right there.
I'll make a
Try.
motion, we accept change of use for 350 State Street.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Thank you.
And just the notation we discussed, it's just that area of the building is the change of use, not the entire.
That's it.
Yeah, it's right,
Thank you.
just clarify that it is in there, we're not bringing this up to the talk about.
Okay. Okay.
No, and you've approved the document before you. And the other document, we will approve administratively.
Okay.
Okay, the minutes for August 1 meeting 2022. A motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to move to approve the August 1st minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And is there anything else to come before the commission? Motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.